I'm really delighted now to invite two guests from the Northwest. Sligo has, of course, a spectacular coastline. It boasts 5 Green Coast Awards and 2 Blue Flag beaches. The beaches of Sligo are certainly very well looked after. 31 Clean Coast groups are operating all along the coast of Sligo. And 2 of those groups combined their efforts and organised a major clean-up operation. Here to tell us about it, we have Michael Kirby from Rathcormac, Drumcliff, Tidy Towns, and do we have Tamlyn? Oh, Tamlyn McHugh, who is from Lissadell Coastcare. So you're very welcome and really looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much for having us here. It's a great opportunity to come up and to brag about where we live, us blow-ins to the Drumcliff area. But we're going to talk to you about our activities in the Drumcliff estuary of Sligo Bay, and specifically about Coolbeg, which is pictured there, which was a major event this past year. As I said, I'm Michael Kirby. I'm with Drumcliff, Rathcormac, Tidy Towns. It's very political. And Tamlyn McHugh from Lissadell Coastcare. And just before we start to talk about it, I'll just give you a little bit of background on the estuary. Yeah. So basically, otherwise referred to as Drumcliff Bay, but should actually be called an estuary. Drumcliff Estuary is one of 3 that empty into Sligo Bay. It's probably the least developed on the coastal front than the 3 bays. And it's about 9 kilometres long, stretching from Drumcliff, the Drumcliff River, which flows from Glencar Waterfall, if you know the Yates connection there, down into what's, again, what we call Sligo Bay at Lissadell. It's, the western end is fairly sandy beaches, and that's where Lissadell is based, Lissadell Beach, and also Ballygilgan Nature Reserve, which is famous for its barnacle geese. They winter feed there. It's about 2,000, I think, or so feed there each year. Coming back to the west towards Ben Bulbin, you can see in the picture at the bottom there is the Drumcliff River, and that area is kind of tidal flats, pools, creeks, and salt marshes. And that's where Coolbeg is based, that's where it is. The Special Protection Area EU Birds Directive for the Sanderling and Special Area Conservation, the lower picture there, that funny looking thing at the front, is actually the Holy Well at Dunaran, which is opposite end from Coolbeg. And tradition has it that if you go around that 3 times counterclockwise on the 9th of June, which is St. Columkill's feast day, you'll be cured of all sorts of ills. But it's only accessible at low tide. In fact, you can't even see it at high tide. And there's fresh water bubbles up there. And into this day, you go down there, and there's hundreds of people go down there on the day to cure themselves. Just give a picture there. Again, you have Coolbeg over here towards the mouth of the Drumcliff River, and opening up here to the left in Sligo Bay. And you can see Lissadell and the goose fields up the top there, Lissadell House, of course. The lower left here is Ross's Point, if you're familiar with that. And again, moving back into the estuary itself, we have Coolbeg, Drumcliff just to the right of it, and to the lower bottom you have Dunaran. How we got started here was basically in 2006 we started doing An Taisce Spring Clean locally, just the local townland of Kintoher. And some of the neighbours then wanted to extend it. We went down to Dunaran on the shores, and we sort of adopted that area as part of Spring Clean. When we became Tidy Towns, it was incorporated into our activities on an annual basis, and in 2012 we formalised it when we joined Clean Coast. We designated it as Clean Coast area. In 2011, the opposite side of the bay, or the estuary, the Curlew's Clean Coast group was founded by locals up there to try and tidy up some areas around Lissadell. About a year or 2 ago, this lady to my left here arrived in the area, and like a dynamo started looking around to see what was going on in the estuary. And after the winter storms in 2014, there was a lot of stuff was washed in, and she organised the first cleanup back in February. About 80 bags of rubbish were collected by locals down at Lissadell. But what she also heard about was other areas of the bay where there was far worse problems of litter and pollution. And that was Coolbeg. And Coolbeg had been identified to us, we became Drumcliff, Rathcormac, Tidy Towns about a year or 2 ago, and it was identified as a major area. And I have to admit, I never, even though I lived directly opposite the other side of the estuary from Coolbeg, and I could look out my window and see it, I never actually went there till early this year, but we had been tagged as this was a really bad area of littering. It's right at the mouth of the Drumcliff River. Just up, a couple hundred metres up, is Drumcliff Churchyard, where W.B. Yeats was buried about 76 years ago. It's a monastic site. There's lots of fish traps, castle and salt works there, which, as an archaeologist, Tamlyn has been educating all of us about over the last year. Coolbeg and Dunaran, where the well is, also are the two ends of an ancient fording point, a Fearsá, which was the main link between Donegal and Sligo. So you had a lot of sort of battles going on in the two ends of this, and that's why there was castle there. It was so important going back over the centuries. Where Coolbeg is, though, is fairly isolated, and that's one of the reasons why I never went down there, because it looks like you're almost driving down to somebody's house. It's a very narrow lane. It's very isolated. It's completely out of view, and for that reason, there's been decades of neglect and wide-scale illegal dumping. So I'm going to pass over to Tam now. She can talk about the event itself.
Thanks, Michael. I'm just going to talk about the level of legal dumping. Michael mentioned there that it seemed like it was going on for decades, and that's true. Pretty much as far as the eye could see along the shore for about 1.5 kilometres, there was litter. And some of it was washed in seaborne litter, but the majority was dumped there, so it was illegal dumping. And a lot of the material was along the tree-lined boundary between the foreshore and the fields nearby. And during the winter storms, it looked like the high tides and everything had burst some of these bags and spread the material along the shore. You can see in one of the slides here some aluminium cans, so there were beer cans everywhere, glass bottles smashed. So this material was completely covering the whole area. We had your usual material like agricultural waste, like silage wrap, fertiliser bags, that sort of thing. There was even a dead lamb on the shore, so there was quite a lot of material there. Household waste as well, that's stuff that was up in the trees. So we'd, nappies, all sorts of pretty disgusting material. And electrical goods. I think the first slide there you would have seen the TVs, so they kind of became a bit infamous in Sligo. The two TVs on the shore. We had other items like strimmer, George Foreman grill, all sorts of stuff. It was like someone just emptied their shed or the contents of their house and just spread it along the shore. And like to go to the effort of getting onto this foreshore was very rough ground. You would have had to drive a tractor or four-wheel drive or something. And it would have been as easy to bring this material to a bring centre, possibly the same distance away, and recycle it for free. The other material that was there was paint pots and laminate flooring, tiles, all sorts of things like that. And you can see here the tyres. The tyres were a major issue. There was 300 plus tyres. And there's just some photographs of the material. So you can see in the tree-lined boundary here some of the domestic waste, and then some of it spread along the shore, and the strimmer. So we said we would take action on this. We contacted the local authority, and the litter warden got him out to go through some of the material to see if we could get a receipt or a name or something from the material. But this was very difficult to prove. The council were very concerned about the tyres because it looked like a business had been systematically dumping them there over a long period of time. And it would cost them also to remove them. I think it's €3 or €4 to recycle each tyre. So anyway, they did take them away and set up a hidden camera to see if they could catch the culprits. So we set a date for our cleanup. We joined forces and we promoted ourselves in media, social media, on Twitter and Facebook. We'll be fairly active on that. I think it's a great way of getting in touch with people about what you're doing. We contacted the Sligo Volunteer Centre as well, and they helped advertise our event, and the local newspaper Sligo Weekender printed some photographs of the litter that was there. Clean Coasts and Sligo County Council provided bags, gloves and the support we needed. The council collected all the material for us afterwards, and we had lots of local businesses helped us as well. So the clean-up day came round. We were delighted. We had 50 volunteers and we worked solidly for 3 hours removing the material. We had at least 100 bags of refuse, plus the tyres that had been previously collected. There's a huge amount of material, and we did what we could to recycle what we could. The stuff was in good enough condition to recycle, so the beer cans, the glass, the electrical items, they're all collected. One of the local guys brought a tractor, and that was great because we were able to remove some of the hazardous material like leaking car batteries. And he went up and down the shore and collected all the rubbish from everybody, and the TVs also because they were quite heavy. Yeah, so, oops. I done something wrong there. Okay, so there's just some pictures of everybody working. You can see the clear bags with the recycled material, our tractor, and moving some of the heavier stuff onto the heap of of rubbish, and we had some kids out with us as well. These kids are great. They come to all our cleanups. There's 3 of them, and without fail they'll be there. So it's great to see the younger generations working. And this was our final haul. So like it's not a beach shore. It's kind of muddy and it's stony, but it's a very pretty area, and like Michael said, ecologically very important area as well, and archaeologically. So I had to stand on a step ladder to get this photograph to try to take in the amount of material that we had. So the council removed all that for us, and there's just a little write-up in the paper about us and a few photographs of the people working, and you can see the group photograph here again, the three kids, and so I'll just back to Michael there.
Well, obviously with our volunteers, we're a small community, we don't have much resources, so it really is the support we get from the local community. And specifically the members from Cliff, Rathcormac Tidy Towns, and also Carney Tidy Towns, Neve's here in the audience, all the locals came out. The scouts are really great. They are with all our spring clean and everything else. A lot of local residents and not so local, and I suppose it's the thing we find within the spring clean. We have people coming from miles away who just want to take part and lend a hand, so it's really fantastic. It's great camaraderie, great way if you're new to a community to kind of meet other people and get involved. And again, as Tamlyn mentioned, we had a lot of local support from businesses. Sligo County Council organised all the tyre removal. Volunteer Centre gave some support to attracting volunteers to the event, and obviously our local Olivia crossing the clean coast did a great hand. And I have to say, really, most importantly though of all, is Tamlyn here, because she really drove this and has driven all the events going on the last year in the estuary. The other things about, we've had 5 major events now this year on the estuary as a whole, Coolbeg being the biggest one. The other 4 were kind of our Lissadell side of it, and one was in Dunerin. I have to say, it's great to hear that the 2-minute man here, because I noticed from stalking Tamlyn on the social media, she was out yesterday before she got on the train to come up here and did a 2-minute clean, so it works. Strengthening existing new partnerships again between tidy towns, between Clean Coast, between Birdwatch. Everybody has had some part to play in this. The sign down here was funded by Clean Coast last year for us in Dunerin, and put together by our local Birdwatch folks. So it's really a great way to build partnerships. A lot more awareness now about what's going on, and a lot more vigilance about dumping and getting calls. And so it's really great, again, that people are now taking part, taking ownership. What we hope for in the future is some new signs and maybe some better access so people can enjoy what we have there. Here's the end result. What can I say? It's a beautiful place. It's to live there is a privilege. It's unspoiled, it's peaceful, and to have the opportunity to share this with you is great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.